Hi, 10CP. I wanted to give you some feedback for the week 2 work, which was Macbeth Act 4 and Act 5. Just to go over a couple of details I want to make sure you understand going into next week and the week after's work. So, for the Act 4 summary, just want to make sure that you understand that Malcolm already has plans to take down Macbeth. And once he trusts Macduff, that's when he includes him in the plan. That's in Act 4, Scene 3, right? And then in Act 4, Scene 3, Macduff also learns about his family being murdered towards the end of that act. And that sort of he was already motivated to take down Macbeth, but now he wants to confront him face to face. And so we're going to see that in Act 5, because by now you know that ultimately Macduff is the one to take down Macbeth. Um, some important Act 4 quotes. I mean, really, the main ones are the apparitions. Those are the big three, and a lot of you chose the apparitions prophecies, which was great because all three of them play a role in Act 5. So, be bloody, bold, and resolute. Laugh to scorn the power of man, for none of women born shall harm Macbeth. And a lot of you said something along the lines of this prophecy is intentionally misleading, but it also gives Macbeth this sense of invincibility, which is going to result in him, making some pretty bold decisions that ultimately come back to bite him and lead to his downfall. So the three apparitions, just to go back to that, so they say beware Macduff, which is again the reason why he kind of goes after Macduff. And they say when Birnam Wood moves to Dunsinane Hill, that's when he'll sort of fall. And then again, the no man of woman born shall harm Macbeth. So act going with that information going into Act 5, the scenes bounce back and forth. They're pretty quick scenes. There's 8 scenes in Act 5. Back and forth from where Macbeth is, which is Dunsinane Hill, and where Malcolm Macduff and his army are, which is Birnam Wood. Right? So Macbeth has grown increasingly unstable. He's cruel and condescending to everyone around him and seems kind of almost bipolar. One minute he's incredibly confident, while the next he fears the witches have tricked him. That's the instinct he should be following, but of course he wants to believe that he'll come out on top. He'll be invincible. So, he allows himself that ignorance, which again is part of the reason why he fails. So in Act 5, Scene 4, once we're back over by Birnam Wood, Malcolm suggests that each man take a branch from a tree and put it over themselves to act as camouflage. And this takes us back to the apparitions prophecy in Act 4. Macbeth shall never vanquished be until great Birnam Wood to high Dunsinane Hill shall come against him. So from far away, with these men in the branches, it would in fact appear as though the forest is moving. It's not literally moving, right? But it's an illusion, right? And so it seemed an impossible prophecy, but here's when we know absolutely that Macbeth has it coming. Yet he won't give up. In the confrontation between Macduff and Macbeth in the last scene, Macbeth believes that Macduff can't beat him because he says, I bear a charmed life. The irony here. And this is when Macduff reveals that he was born through a C-section. So he was pulled through his mother's abdomen instead of passing through a woman's birth canal of woman. So he's not of woman born. This is when Macbeth finally realizes he's been duped, but he still fights Macduff, right? He's a true soldier until the end. That's one thing about him that doesn't really change from the beginning to the end. Macduff kills him and presents his head to Malcolm, who is then named the rightful and true king of Scotland. And how could I forget? If we were in school, we would spend more time on this. But Lady Macbeth, who would have guessed by her first appearance that she'd end up committing suicide because she couldn't take the guilt? The best way I can understand why she kind of loses it is that she's a great example of the consequences of greed and ambition. She could talk the talk, but not walk the walk. And that started when she couldn't kill Duncan because he looked too much like her father. She has to take the responsibility, and she does via her guilt, for what she created in Macbeth. She created the monster that Macbeth becomes, and in the end, she just can't take it. I'm sorry you couldn't watch Act 4 and 5 of the movie version we watched in class. Or maybe you were able to if you have Amazon Prime. But over the next 2 weeks, we'll be doing wrap up activities for Macbeth before we move on to something new. So you'll have a relatively quick writing assignment next week. And then for week 4, you'll be creating a Macbeth soundtrack as a sort of creative project. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. I'll give you more details so that you be prepared. But I just wanted to give you an idea of what is ahead. I hope you are all well, and I will see you soon.